Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. My name is Sarita. I have our first candle review of the new year, not a new one to 2024, but one that came out fairly recently and one that I've talked a great deal about over the last month or so. So really this candle review shouldn't be too long. The candle in question is from Bath & Body Works, and it is Cocoa Roasted Chestnuts right here. Yeah. It's a really stunning label, and it's a translucent kind of a blue glass, and the blue in the wax was actually kind of a light blue color as well. It did get a little bit sooty. You can see some discoloration there at the bottom. But really just kind of in those final few burns where the candle gets like super, super hot. Otherwise, it really wasn't a ton of sootiness. And it's like sister that came out in same packaging that was like that fuchsia color. And I think it was called, what was it? Like Birchwood Orchard, which was so fantastic. And it was basically a repackage of Applewood and Clove. Again, neither one of them did a ton of sooting, although they kind of burned a little bit unevenly, i.e. it took more time than usual to get it to pool all the way to the edges. Yeah. But if you can do that and you can devote the time to it, great. Okay, so this candle did not get good press, and there's a very good reason for that. It's because the name of it is Cocoa Roasted Chestnuts, and everyone expected it to smell like cocoa roasted chestnuts, which frankly seems like a fairly good assumption to make, right? This does not smell like cocoa roasted chestnuts. So the people who bought it obviously wanted that and were disappointed when they didn't get it. Then there's a whole other group of people who would have liked this candle, i.e. me. Well, I mean, I smelled it in the store, so that was good. But people like me who are not gourmand people, who would not have wanted a candle called Cocoa Roasted Chestnuts, and in fact, would really, really love it, but were dissuaded from the fact that it had that name. So those people didn't buy it, yeah? And then there was the group in the middle who would have liked either one of these candles, the one that is here given, or a coconut roasted chestnut. But frankly, they bought it thinking it was this, and were so, frankly, offended by the bait and switch and so disoriented by it that they couldn't actually fully appreciate a candle that otherwise they would have liked. Those are the three categories, which is to say that almost nobody was happy with this candle. And it's such a disappointment because it is a beautiful candle. And in fact, so beautiful that I think if it had been marketed correctly and named correctly, it would have been a really big hit, and perhaps even one of their best new candles of the year. So the notes on this are roasted chestnuts, cocoa powder, and vanilla woods. So vanilla woods should have been a little bit of a red flag that this candle was not true gourmand. And so there should have been a little bit of a pause, I think, in the way that gourmand fans came to the table for this candle, yeah? And a little bit of hope in the minds of those who were not like true gourmand people, that this was going to be a little bit more complex. But also, why would you have vanilla woods with coconut roasted chestnuts? I'm not sure that those necessarily go together. When you smell it, there's nothing particularly nutty about this fragrance at all. And whatever that vanilla woods is, that's pretty much the whole candle. But it's more than that. You really do get a cocoa nuance here. And by cocoa, I actually think it's really smart of them to call this cocoa as opposed to chocolate, because it's not a molten candy kind of chocolate. It's like a powdery, unsweetened kind of chocolate. So cocoa is actually correct here. There is a lot of sweetness in this candle, but that comes from the vanilla. I'm not sure about the woods necessarily, but definitely the vanilla. So there's a great big creamy vanilla component to this candle. And then it's got that dry, like unsweetened cocoa, like overtone. And then I would say tonka bean. So rather than it going vanilla woody, it's like a vanilla tonka bean, which actually makes a great deal of sense because tonka bean has like a nuttiness to it, yeah, which coincides very nicely with the cocoa and with like a cocoa bean, for instance. So the beans and the nuts in this candle, so, or to put it another way, the nuts in this candle don't smell like chestnuts or pecans or walnuts. They smell like dried beans, as in like a coffee bean or a cocoa bean or a tonka bean, yeah? Or nutmeg, like just one of those kinds of like spicy allspice kind of nuts, but not spicy. But you know what I mean? I think the direction is cocoa bean and tonka bean. And you know those amazing like personal body care products that have like shea butter or cocoa butter in them. That's this kind of candle. It's a cocoa butter candle. It's a shea butter candle. And when it says vanilla woods, it's about vanilla. The woods aspect isn't so much woods as it is musk. Okay? So when they're talking woods, I think it's a more conceptual, like masculine kind of element. And that goes in the direction of musk rather than wood. Okay. So now we have a completely different fragrance than the one that is implied by the name. Now we have a cocoa butter, shea butter kind of fragrance with a real, true, authentic sprinkling of real cocoa, yeah? Like from the cocoa bean, unsweetened. And then you've got musk on the bottom that just makes it deep and rich and intriguing and sultry and almost intoxicating, yeah? I said before that my next door neighbor had a Barbie that smelled exactly like this in the 1980s. It was a Barbie that smelled like white musk, basically. And now I'm wondering if there was a little bit of chocolate in it too, which would make sense since it was a Barbie for a 6-year-old, right? So to me, this brings back so many like 80s and 90s memories of like a particular time and a particular fragrance that is both like soothing, but also playful, but also intoxicating and kind of sexy. Yeah. I love this candle and it really performed pretty well. For the most part, it got up in the 7 range for me all of the time. When it got down low, it started kind of struggling with very low burns. Here's a video actually of how it was burning at one point. It wasn't true puny wicks, but it was awfully close, just very low. So puny wicks is when they're like so low that there's basically no movement. So if you look at the dancing flame, if it's able to kind of like wiggle around a little bit like this, it's not truly puny. But it's not exactly high flying, high burning either, yeah? And that's what this one was basically doing. Now, if it's true puny wicks, then the flames go like this. And they're so tiny that they can't move and they can't wiggle. And then they just kind of like go out because they like can't take it anymore, right? So it's all about how much wiggle your flame can have. This one had a little bit of wiggle, but it was burning awfully low toward the end, which means it wasn't giving off as much strength and throw. And it also was taking a long time for it to like pool all the way. And as you can see, there's even some drag here on the side of the glass. So I would say down lower, and that was true of the Birchwood Orchard as well. They actually burned very similarly. Must be kind of the same wax formula. When it got down to the bottom, it really struggled, but I would say for at least like 3/4 of the candle burned great, had very decent strength and throw. Would I have loved it to have been up in the 7.5 or almost 8 range? Yes, I would. I could take more of this. It could be a little more powerful, but I was happy with 7. 7 was good. 7 was good. And it really filled up my my back side of the house, really gorgeous, left the doors closed. And then when I would walk back, like I would smell it and everything. I love this candle. I love this candle so much that during Candle Day, I bought 2 more as a backup. Partly I bought it because the reception on it was so bad then I'll be shocked if it comes back. And I don't think it should come back under this name. I just really don't think you should. Like, it just needs a new name. It needs a new marketing. It needs a new, like, promotional campaign. What if this came out, if they had waited on this and brought it out in January? Because there's nothing very holiday about it. What if they brought it out in January? It would have been gorgeous for January. It would have been gorgeous for now. Because, you know, they usually go to the tropics. It's Fiji. It's the coconuts, all the coconuts. And like a cocoa butter and shea butter would just fit really well within that genre, but not have coconut, not be so overt. And it also has this sultry, sexy, kind of cozy and creamy vibe to it that is perfect for January. Perfect. Perfect. More perfect than like the pina coladas. I mean, this would have been everything if they had just marketed it differently, called it something having to do with cocoa butter and shea butter, and done it in January. We would all be talking about it in a brand new way. If you can get your hands on this and you love cocoa butter and shea butter, you are going to love this candle. Just shake your head like an Etch-a-Sketch and forget the marketing and forget the chestnuts and all those different things. Absolutely not. And the packaging is even like pretty, like, it's not holiday necessarily. Like, you could absolutely burn that in January and in February. It's actually really stunning. And it's still going to be cold for January and February and maybe March, depending upon where you live, you know? So it's perfect. It's perfect. I think it's gorgeous, and it's one of my favorite candles of the year from last year. And I would have definitely nominated it if it hadn't been such a misfire from the marketing standpoint. I love it. 2 thumbs up. Tell me what you thought. And if you hated it, did it really just have to do more with being offended by the marketing strategy rather than the fragrance itself? Unless you really don't like fragrances like that, in which case you were probably angry about both. It's great. Yep. 2 thumbs up for Bath & Body Works. I love it. And it's a great burn for right now. Catch you in the next one.